everybody, and welcome to Zenatta Consulting's Beginner Series. This video will be the second here in our series on SalesIQ, more specifically the bots inside of SalesIQ. So in our last video, we walked through the answer bot, which is a natural language processing bot that basically queries against frequently asked questions and articles that you log into the system. This video, we're going to actually walk through the Zobot, which is a kind of more directed goal-seeking bot where you're trying to drive a user to do a certain thing. Before we get started, I should say my name is Tyler Colt with Zenatta Consulting. And if you do find this video useful, please give it a like and subscribe down below so you'll see future videos that we post. And if you have any questions, please try to drop those into the comments down below. We actually answer as many of those as we can every week on our podcast, the CRM Zen Show, and we actually will link back to those answers for you in the comments as we answer them. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right into the Zobot builder here. So Zobots have been around inside of SalesIQ for a long time, but they were kind of inaccessible for most people because they had to be built exclusively in Zoho's scripting language, Deluge. Now, of course, at Zenatta, we have a ton of really talented Deluge coders, but every single one of us thought that the old method for this was a headache. It was just very complicated, very difficult. And it makes sense why it was, because bots have to, capture a lot of data and make a lot of decisions on the fly. One of the great things that Zoho has done here with SalesIQ 2.0 is this Codeless Bot Builder. So we're going to focus on that today. We're not going to do any of this with Deluge code because it is just wildly complicated. So let's say we want to go ahead and start our bot here. The first thing we'll do is give it a name, and we'll choose which method we want to build it in. So again, we're going to build it here using a Codeless Bot Builder. We're going to give it a profile. So we'll give it a description. We'll choose which brand this should be associated with. In our case, we just have the one. And then we'll choose which working hours we want to set this up for, on our site. So do we want it just during standard or during all business hours? In this case, I'll set it up just for all business hours, and we can jump to our next settings. So the first thing we'll need to do is go through kind of a set of configurations about the bot, and we'll go through each of these so you kind of know where to start. So the first thing we want to do is figure out what our audience should be for the bot. So by default, it's going to say every single user is going to interact with this bot, but we can get a lot more specific than that. If we want to get specific, we'll go ahead and choose the custom visitors option. And in here, we can basically build a series of if-then statements that would help us determine if the bot should show up. So oftentimes, maybe I only want to really use this bot if I've gotten some kind of confirmed interest from the web visitor. I don't want to bother people, right? Who might just be on the site, taking a look at a couple things and, might not really be committed to getting in touch or doing any forward actions. So maybe I want to do something like if the current page URL contains, some of these items that might be in my URL, right? So if they're on a contact us page, or if they're on a pricing page, maybe I want to use this bot. Make that it contains here. And maybe I want to do some additional filters here outside of the page title, right? Maybe I want to say that they have to have accessed, let's say, greater than 3 pages. So they have to have been kind of poking around on the site for a while. And lastly, maybe I want to say that they need to have visited the site more than one time. So they need to be a repeat visitor who's seen more than 3 of our pages and is currently on either the contact us or the pricing page. So you can get pretty specific with these. And I also will highlight, you can have multiple different bots. So sometimes, we've built these out where there's 5 or 6 different bots that are just going off based on different criteria or different pages on the site. And you can make those bots act really differently, right? So a bot that's on a pricing page versus a bot that's on a support page should ask a different first question and have different options to respond to that question. I'm kind of running down the list here. When should the bot initiate a chat? So here we can choose Do we want the bot to be proactive, right? They've been on the site for 5 seconds and we're now going to ping them, right? Where the bot's going to pop up and say, hey, can I help you? You can also say that we can do it when they click the chat widget specifically or perform a custom action, which we're not really going to dive into too much right now. This would be if you had a specific banner or button on your website that you wanted to trigger the bot from. As we go down the list here, we can choose the response interval. This is just how fast the bot is going to respond to questions. Sometimes people will do kind of 2 or 3 seconds to make it feel like there's a typed response coming through. Oftentimes what I'll do is make it immediate because you're not going to fool someone into thinking that this isn't a bot. So we might as well just, do it as fast as we can. We can also choose, should the bot do something if the chat goes inactive? I would say yes. So if maybe someone clicked out to another tab and forgot to, finish their chat, the bot will actually ping them and go, hey, anything else I can help with, or should I close this out? We can also choose, should the bot automatically close the conversation due to inactivity, which again, I would recommend having that turned on. A couple last little sections here are just around allowing handoff to operators. So if you are using SalesIQ just for web tracking and bots, go ahead and turn this off. You don't want to give someone a button that every time they press it, it's going to fail and say that there's no operator. Now, if you do have a bunch of operators regularly inside of SalesIQ, you'll want to turn this on because there are those people that are going to see that this is a bot and they're going to go, skip, give me a human. Right? And you don't want to lose that lead just because you're trying to use a bot first. So if you've got the number of reps necessary to field these chats and you're hoping to just use the bot to speed things up, you want to leave this turned on. And then lastly, if you do forward it to a human operator, you can go ahead and give it a message here. So, you can say, handing you off to a certified human being now. And so now we've kind of created the core structure of our bot. Now we have to kind of do the fun part here, which is getting into our intro and question answers that we want to drive people through this interface for. Now, what I'm going to do here is kind of give you a walkthrough of the core blocks that you can use. Of course, imagination runs wild. There's a ton of stuff you could do in here, and I'm just going to highlight like a few key use cases that we might want to deploy. So right off the bat, it's going to start you with this welcome card that does a quick reply. Now, what I recommend that you do is just delete that. Just delete it right out of here. With a Zobot, you really want to try to give people specific requests and specific responses that they can use so that we can best route them. You want to minimize any open text and open typing that someone's doing. Now, they're always going to be able to do that. But most of the time, if you give someone a set of options, they're going to pick from one of those as long as we've thought through what they should be. And so here we're going to delete this welcome card. We don't like that open response, and we're going to build our own. So here what we can do is we can actually go in and add one of these different input blocks. So I guess this would be a good chance to kind of walk through a variety of what these are. So, you've got these different types of blocks. The first are response blocks. So response is just going to instantly do a response to someone and then move to the next step. An article is going to pull from the bank of articles that we have on file. So if you watched our last video on the answer bots, you'll know that we created this article for billing information. So you could actually give them a prompt to just respond with an article. You can also do that with a video. This is actually really, really cool. If you have videos on YouTube, it will embed them in the chat and they can get a preview and then click through over to the actual YouTube video in full. And then lastly, in our responses here, we can do a link. So this would just give someone kind of a quick link and a button to, maybe book a meeting or, access a pricing page on your site. The next kind of set here are the various input blocks where we're asking the customer to give us information. That could be anything like a press of a button, right? Where we're going to give them some options of I need help or I'm looking for deals. You can do a option block, which is pretty similar to a button, basically just different in the user interface. You can do a multi-select. So if you want to give them multiple things that they can choose, like maybe products I'm interested in. You can do a calendar, you can do a slider, how happy are you with this? You can do a rating. You can give them the ability to provide a location, as well as the ability to choose a slot. So this kind of gets into a more specific use case, so we'll not spend too much time on slots right now. Now, the next set of blocks are action blocks. These are things that we want the bot to do, but that might not be apparent to the customer. So if we want to have some type of criteria filter, so maybe if I'm in the bot, I want to say that if they have accessed more than 10 pages, treat them this way, versus if they've accessed less than 10, treat them this other way. You can take a look at forwarding, which would just be forwarding to an operator in a department. Go to, which is going to actually link them over to a particular page on your site. Plugs are for custom functionality. So that would be something like an external webhook to a different service. An example of how you might use that is if a chat visitor reaches a certain point, maybe you want to post a webhook that goes over to Click and notifies people, hey, there's an active chatter who wants to get in touch with someone. And then, of course, we can send an email with one of these action blocks as well. The other one here, end blocks, we can go ahead and stop a chat, block a user, say if the operator is busy, give it an end, write an end to the chat. And then data blocks are ways to allow the customer to give us information. And so now that we've kind of walked through the core actions and blocks that we can use, let's go ahead and just build out a basic bot with kind of a use case that we see come up pretty often. So again, rather than starting with that open response, we're going to start with one of our buttons. And we'll give it a message. And so maybe we want to do something like, chat with support, chat with sales. I'm just browsing. And so now that we've done these buttons, we'll see that now we have 3 different branches and we can decide where things should go based on what's happening with this particular card. Now, in this case, now that we've asked them this question, maybe we want to gather a little bit of information about them. So we can grab something like their name. And maybe we want to get their email. And then lastly, now that we have this name and email, maybe we want to give them the opportunity to kind of give us an open response as to, what is going wrong, right? And what's happening. Now, there's a lot of different ways to capture a response for someone, but I would recommend capturing most responses in what are called visitor fields. Now, the reason is that with these visitor fields, you don't actually have to save it to a particular visitor's record. So maybe we want to ask them before we connect them to support, how can we help out? And what we can do is actually save that into a field in the context of this bot that can then be forwarded over and provided to a support member. So maybe we want to give this most recent support request as a parameter here. And so now we've kind of gone through and they've said, okay, I want to chat with support. So we've got their name, email, and what they need. And at this point, we can now go ahead and try to forward them over to an operator. So if we do that, right, we can set up this forward. We can choose who we want to forward it to. In this case, we'll forward it to our main department. And maybe we want to say that this is our customer service agent that we want to use. Oftentimes, you might have multiple departments in here for customer service versus sales. And now we have, successfully put in our block to forward. Now, there's a few things that you want to do here. So because it's possible that someone is going to be offline or busy, we need to have some kind of end block here. So what we'll do is we'll set up an operator busy, and each of these can just go and route over to this individual block. Oops. And now this operator busy acts as an end block for this particular flow. And so you don't really need to add anything after it. Now, the other option here, if they were to chat with sales, you'd probably do a similar thing, right? You might ask them a couple different questions or maybe route them to the pricing page so they can take a look at that. But what we'll do now is we'll look at this one for I'm just browsing. And so as someone is just browsing, you will need to add an end statement to every single one of these branches. So here, I'll just go ahead and do an end call and say, got it. Let us know if you need anything. Put a little smiley face in there for them. Okay. And so lastly here, we'll show a couple little options of what we might want to do with a more specific flow for sales. So what I'm going to do is we're going to kind of take it out of the oven here, and I'm just going to drop in some of these core blocks at the beginning, and then we'll take a look at some different options that we might look at for more of a sales-centric flow. Okay, so now we've just put in some of these quick little cards here. And maybe if we're routing someone to sales, we're thinking, let's try to filter some people out and see if there's things on the website that can answer questions for people. So maybe I would want to put in another one of these buttons, and I would want to say something like, in particular, you have questions about pricing, product, and let's say other. And so where you start getting into the interesting functionality here is that maybe for something like pricing, we would want to give them a link to a particular, oops, not a go-to. We might want to give them a link to our pricing page, right? So we could say in the same page, go ahead and head over to zenatta.com/pricing, which I don't think is actually a real page on our site. But if they are interested in pricing, we can go ahead and do that. And we'll give it some proper verbiage here. And if they're looking at products, maybe we have a great YouTube video about our products that we want to put in. So we can go ahead and grab the video action, which I am unable to find here. There we go, video. Okay. Now, of course, that's not going to be a proper video here. It's just going to be the YouTube homepage. But now, regardless of any of these different things, we might want to ask them another question. Did this answer your question? Yes or no? And both of these can actually route to this. If it says yes, maybe we want to go something like, just end our chat. But if that answer is no, maybe now we want to go ahead and forward to an operator. And again, in this case, because if they had another question that wasn't covered in our pricing or product, we would also want to forward that. So we can just connect those to this same exact block and then use our same operator busy here to capture any of that information and let the customer know that, sorry, we're not available right at this moment. Okay, so now we've connected all of those here. As you build these, things are going to get a little bit wonky. So oftentimes what you want to do is just grab this auto arrange, which is going to do its best to try to make things make sense. In this case, we've got a lot of branching and looping here, so it gets a little bit confusing. Now down here in the bottom right, we can actually go ahead and preview and test the bot. So in this case, I can say, okay, I'm going to chat with support. My name is Tyler. Grab an email. How can I help out? Need some help, please. And now it's gone over and done our forward. But if I were to go ahead and restart, maybe I said, I'm just browsing. Well, now it's just going to leave me alone. And lastly, if I were to do this bot and say something like, oops, chat with sales, again, it's going to ask me for my name. It's grabbing my email from my account here. I can choose between pricing, product, and other. So if I chose pricing, it would go with a link to the pricing page. If I chose product, it would do an embed of my YouTube video, which again, in this case, is just a full page of the YouTube homepage. Or if I said other, it would go ahead and just connect me directly to that operator. And so what you'll see, of course, is that this was just a quick demo, right? As we kind of built out a couple different flows that you might use on your own site. But there is just a whole bunch that can be done with this bot to try to increase conversion of web visitors to leads in your CRM, as well as decrease the amount of people that are coming in for customer service. You can oftentimes route a lot of different questions to the proper page or article on your site and not have to handle all of those manually. And so with that, I think we're going to wrap up this video here. Thank you, of course, so much for watching. We hope you did find this content useful. If you did enjoy the content, please go ahead and like this video and subscribe down below so that you see future videos. And if you have any questions, go ahead and drop those in the comments down below, and we'll do our best to answer those every single week on our podcast, The CRM Zen Show. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.